Like Dante, who begins his narrative with being lost in a dark wood, Ibn Arabi, as always, begins this treatise with a khutbah, a prologue or address, beginning with the words, "Praise be to God who was in the cloud." Thus, center stage is the divine. This is not simply some pious formula before getting down to discussing the real meat of human voyaging. On the contrary, it is an alignment to the proper order of things. Put simply, if we do not begin from the whole, from the origin of unity, we remain lost in separateness, groping in the dark wood. We have posited a starting point that is illusory. Human voyaging will only make sense within the context of reality, or from the bird's eye standpoint. After a prologue that discusses general points such as the incessant nature of voyaging, the types of voyages, the types of voyagers, the first voyage that Ibn Arabi discusses is not one made by a human being at all. It is the one made by God himself, the voyage of the One itself. The lordly voyage from the cloud to the sitting on the throne, assumed by the name All-Merciful, Ar-Rahman. So we are starting our voyaging through the book with the very reason why there's any movement in the universe at all, why we voyage at all, why the whole process of being and becoming was initiated. Those familiar with Ibn Arabi's teaching will probably at this point summarize this or relate it to the divine saying he often quotes, "I was an unknown treasure and I loved to be known, so I created the creation that I might be known." But here in the Isfar, Ibn Arabi provides a more poetic and detailed picture, one that is hugely dynamic as its focus is on voyaging as unveiling. So firstly, a voyage from pure potentiality, symbolized by the cloud, to the appearance of mercy as the sole ruler or king of the entire all-encompassing circle of creation, as symbolized by the throne. In numerical terms, it is the voyage of the one out of the great void, a void which we cannot talk about except as an absence of number, a realm which is one of unlimited capacity of imagination before any imaging can take place. It is a voyage, in other words, from zero to oneness. It is loving mercy that caused this voyage. It is loving mercy that appears as the ultimate ruler of all that is to come into existence. In other words, Ibn Arabi is saying, the first thing that God had mercy on was himself. The second voyage is also a divine voyage, a playing out of the implications of the first one, because if there is one, there must be two. Two worlds, creation and command, two mirror principles, cosmos and human, two worlds in the form of the unseen and the seen. And at the same time, this is a voyage specifically entailing unveiling, manifesting that which is hidden, displaying the differences between the high and the low. Ibn Arabi says, this is a voyage that unveils its face. It brings to light what every human being contains of blameworthy and praiseworthy character traits. And we might note that this ethical dimension is not a purely individual matter. It's intrinsic to the nature of things. It's only in the light of the divine truth, according to Ibn Arabi, that what is praiseworthy or blameworthy can really be understood. In the third voyage, that of the noble Quran, which I've already spoken about, Ibn Arabi moves on to the implications of difference, that God ceaselessly sends down inspiration as a warning and as an exposition of wisdom. This is not simply a descent of the Quran as an external book of revealed wisdom, but as the direct descent of all meaning and all wisdom as depicted in the fully human being, into the human heart. This descent is both whole, complete, as well as fragmentary, constellational, self-completing. The fourth voyage, that of vision in the signs, is expressed as a meditation on the night journey of the Prophet, in particular, the first verse of Surah 17. Glory be to him who carried his servant by night from the inviolable place of prostration to the furthest place of prostration, that we might show him of our signs. This voyage centers on vision of divine signs, but then Ibn Arabi says, it confirms the Prophet in his election to the station of love, because he took him as an intimate friend and beloved. And it's clear from Ibn Arabi's discussion that what God loves in the Prophet is himself. For what gives rise to the elevation of the true human being is the full realization of being servant, not as something, but as a nothing. Love, he says, demands jealousy, so there remains no trace of the servant. And yet, the servant, he says, is powerful, and there's no restriction upon him because of his divine identity. So this is a voyage of two lover-beloveds in two places of vision. These first four voyages express the total alignment of the divine order from its highest degree to its lowest, as found within the truly human being. They express an eternal template of all voyaging. On the divine side, a movement of love and of mercy to his own possibilities. On the human side, a movement of servanthood, not as someone with a choice whether to obey or disobey, but simply the complete prostration of the heart to the Lord, without there being any command to do so, and without this signifying anything but the intrinsic act of being human. And in one sense, one could say, this is all that has ever happened. God's outpouring of himself into his beloved so that the divine mystery can be known. In many ways, these four voyages express and amplify the same principle that Ibn Arabi puts so succinctly in the opening paragraph of the beginning of his Fusus. The real wanted to see the essences of his most beautiful names, whose number cannot be counted. Or if you like, you may say, he wanted to see his own essence, in an all-inclusive created being that encompasses the whole order, because it is qualified by existence, and in which he could manifest his mystery to himself. So in conclusion, what is it that makes this book so compelling? And why indeed should one study voyages made by prophets apparently so long ago? And what does this book have to say to us in the second decade of the 21st century? For some people, the ultimate criterion of a human being is to beautify. That's to say, to make the world a better place than we found it. To contribute, so that the world is better off for us having been in it. But for Ibn Arabi, there is really a much greater vision than ideas of our self-worth. He's interested in the reality of our self-worth. He says about this book, all these voyages are only bridges and pontoons that are placed for us to cross over to our own essences and the states that are specific to us. He he then goes on in the most explicit fashion in the Isfar to describe what he really means in this book. This is at the end of the 9th voyage, that of approach and no turning back. What I have recounted to you is to remind you of what is within you. And what I've called your attention to is so that you will know that you are everything, in everything, and part of everything. Thank you very much.